Welcome one, welcome all. It is Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. It is 8:03 p.m. Central Standard Time. Apologies for being 3 minutes late. We had some things behind the scenes happening. I was trying to finish my egg sandwich that I made for dinner. That's really what's going on. We're live on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitch channel, as we always are every Tuesday evening for the Blog on the Boys Roundtables. This show rolls on through the offseason, but those are days of the past because it is week one. The regular season is here. That means we have a game to discuss. We have predictions to yield, which is what we're going to be doing tonight. I say we. My name is RJ Ochoa. And with me, as always, three fantastic, debonair, swashbuckling members of the Blog on the Boys universe. Let's start in clockwise order. Danny Phantom, is that water that you were sipping in that mug right there?
You know that it is.
Okay. Room temp, cold, hot?
Yeah, it's cold water. But I feel a little bit awkward in this position. I feel like Tony should be here. This is just like, I don't know. I feel a little lost in this roundtable.
Well, you can listen to this show as a podcast. So people who are doing that obviously don't understand. You're in our upper right quadrant. Generally, that's Tony, but you got here first. So it just automatically sorts you based on tardiness. So Tony Catalina, southeast for you, a bit different. How does it feel?
Well, I guess usually I'm the first one in. I guess I wasn't the first one in this time. So, it's different.
Well, you look great in this spot anyway, Tony. You do too as well, Danny. So do you, LP. You had some microphone issues that we worked out. I say this all the time. Your microphone, it must have cost like $2 million. Like you have this like pure gold microphone in front of you that is so much better than anything that we have to offer here. Well, you're muted now, so it's ironic that we're praising your microphone. So
I was trying to keep it humble, but thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Well said. It is week one. The Dallas Cowboys will visit the New York good once again at football giants on Sunday Night Football to be specific, on NBC. Tony Catalina will be there. If anybody is going to be as well, hit him up on Twitter at Tony_Catalina. He'll buy whatever you have going on at your tailgate. Tony Catalina will. So everybody just get his Venmo and he'll send whatever you need your way. Danny Phantom, LP, I don't think we'll be there. I don't know about you, LP, but okay, so we won't. So we'll be parked on our couches nonetheless, watching as hopefully the Cowboys pick up their first win of the season. I think that's what we're all predicting, but we're here tonight to predict a few different things. I sent you all a Google Doc earlier today with some different predictions. Danny, did you have any difficulty putting these together?
It wasn't too hard, but I had to think a little bit about I had some options. So I wouldn't say difficulty, but I had to think a little bit.
Tony, you actually got upset at someone who we found out to be LP, that they were taking all of your answers because we were all kind of active in the document at the same time. So it does kind of feel like a chalk season in terms of what we're expecting.
Yeah, I think we get to look at it here and we'll get to talk about it a little bit, but it seemed like we had a common theme on some of these answers, but I tried to go different a little bit here, so I'll make it a little fun.
LP, how did it feel to be found out that you were thinking along the same lines as Tony?
I mean, great minds think alike, right? But I think our rationale is going to be a little bit different as we get to kind of the talking points. So, but cool though, cool all the same.
So let's go ahead and get to it. We would, of course, love audience participation. We would also love, as Watsamata notes, on the YouTube side of things. If you can hit the like button, subscribe to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel, those things help us out. We have lots of live shows that happen throughout the season. Now that it is the regular season, our Madden simulations will be returning. That will be dropping on Friday here on the channel. We'll run it. We'll see what the video game has to say as far as what the Cowboys and Giants will do on Sunday night. And speaking of Sunday night after the game, I'll be live here on the channel, on Facebook, on Twitch, discussing what we hope was a Dallas Cowboys victory. But we have lots of analysis and discussion happening about the Cowboys-Giants game specifically on Sunday all across the podcast network, the YouTube channel, the website. Tonight, we're going to look forward a little bit further all the way through the 2023 NFL season. So that being said, team MVP, we're predicting here, audience. That's the game tonight. We want to know who you think will be each person. So I was on an island by myself here, and I said Dak Prescott. I'm kind of putting all my eggs in the Dak Prescott basket. I think what each of you had to say makes a lot of sense as well. But the Cowboys are going to go as far as Dak Prescott goes. We can think that other players are talented and important and have merit. But at the end of the day, Dak, not Zeke, sorry, Stephen Jones, is the straw that stirs the drink. And if Dak Prescott does put together an MVP sort of season, I think that would lead to obviously a lot of success and what we all want to see from the Cowboys. That being said, LP, can you see Dak Prescott ending 2023 as the team MVP?
So I didn't. I went with Micah Parsons, which I'm sure is a popular answer for a lot of us on the panel tonight. And Micah's just different, man. He's a different animal. He's just that impactful. And we talk about his comparisons of guys like LT. I use the Steph Curry analogy. He just creates orbit around him. He's so impactful that if he doesn't go off, somebody else will, thanks to him. And he makes big plays. So guys you think about that are primed to have big years, Osa, Sam Williams, they all kind of feed off of Micah. And I think he's going to be productive, and he just helps a great secondary. So I went with Micah Parsons.
If Micah's Steph, who does that make Dak? Keep it on the Warriors.
Clay?
I think that could have gone a lot worse. I mean, I don't know. Maybe DeMarcus Lawrence is Draymond Green, like from a demonstrative standpoint, not an unlikability standpoint. But
okay.
We'll see. I guess that makes Mike McCarthy Steve Kerr. Danny Phantom, you also went Micah Parsons, but could you see Dak making sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In fact, I believe I actually put Dak first. Because, I mean, there's no denying that Dak is the most valuable piece to this team as far as value and what he means to the team. But then I started thinking about it a little bit, and I started to remember Micah Parsons is he's just remarkable. And I mean, I really think this is just going to be a huge year. And one of the things too about this is the Cowboys have done a lot to help both Dak Prescott and Micah, just pieces around them that are really going to just create opportunities. And I think that, it's easy to point out the reasons why Dak could be great this year, but also too, just a little bit of help here with Amazi here, and just little strengthening that they have on the defensive line. I'm just trying to figure out how they're going to stop this guy. And he was just totally wrecking training camp and just making everything difficult for the Cowboys in their practice. So now you get him out there and unleash him with the talent they have him, also with corners that can actually defend. And I just think that all these things together are just going to just make Micah just raise it to the next level. And I just think this is going to be a monster year for him.
Tony, my only thought against Micah, we all agree he's the most talented player on the team, but at the end of the day, he's a defensive player. At the end of the day, his impact has a limit as opposed to Dak. I mean, right? And that's the inherent advantage or responsibility or curse, whatever you want to call it, that comes with being the quarterback of a given NFL team. But that's why, again, like if each of them has the best possible season that they could possibly have for the Cowboys, wouldn't Dak Prescott's be more valuable?
Well, without a doubt, I for a record, I picked Micah Parsons to be the MVP, but I absolutely agree with you saying that if Dak Prescott was able to win that for this team this year, I think it has a larger impact on this team. If our quarterback goes out there and is clear and above everybody else, and his impact is just that most valuable player type level, it's going to be a huge thing for this team. Like you said, the quarterback, it starts and finishes with him. Like you said, it stirs the drink. So Micah Parsons can go on and have 15, 16 sacks. But if Dak Prescott is surgical, he gets in that top 5 quarterback range comfortably, or it just has the best year of his career, that impact could propel us to heights we haven't seen in a quarter century.
So I did not mention at the top, but this is a game and there are points being awarded. LP, you've picked up 10 so far from the crowd. Danny, Tony, you're both sitting at 5. So right now, LP out to a strong lead. We'll see how this ultimately goes throughout the duration of our conversation here. Watsamata chimes in with a super chat. Thank you very much. Watsamata says, I'm still butthurt over Aikman getting MVP in the 1993 Super Bowl win over Buffalo. I refer to that as the 92 Super Bowl. I know that's a weird delineation among NFL fans, whatever. But James Washington clearly earned it, but the offensive guy always gets the MVP. Micah actually alters the Earth's rotation. Again, I think we all acknowledge that Micah Parsons is incredible. And Kevin, by the way, has answered the question offered from who asked the question? Was it Kevin asked, and then Rick answered. Goodness gracious, I've lost myself in the comments. Cowboys were 4-1 last year without Dak Prescott. I don't think that's an indictment against Dak's value to the team. Tony, you've picked up 5 points. Okay, so this wasn't on the prompt, but obviously Micah and Dak are valuable in their own ways to the Cowboys. A quick on your feet question. Danny Phantom, who is the team MVP on the Cowboys this year that is not Micah or Dak Prescott?
I'm gonna go with CD in that regard then. So C would be my number 3 choice. I think that with all the weapons that the Cowboys have, you know, Dak's going to be the benefactor too. But like, if CD just takes that next step as well, I just think that's just going to, you know, make things that much better. So I mean, I think he's probably the third best. I mean, Zach Martin would be, but I would still say like CD is probably right there as far as the next best player, and the impact he could make could be really large.
I think that's well said. Tony.
I'm going to take it in a little different direction. I think I'm going to say here, I think it'd be Stephon Gilmore. And it's because what he can do for this pass rush, having a real number 2 cornerback out there that, you know, if you're not going to go at Trayvon Diggs, and if Stephon Gilmore is who we think he is, then he changes the dynamic of that secondary a little bit. And realistically, if you give this, you know, pass rush a second longer, it's going to produce more sacks, more turnovers, and the value in that. I mean, I was like the leader of the Anthony Brown fan club here, but this is just a different level at the corner 2, corner 3 spot. So it may not be that he ends up being the actual most valuable player, but I think his impact will be on that level.
Okay, LP.
I mean, I'm going to go with the running back. I'm gonna go with Pollard, man. I think he's just in for a big year this year. The way it's kind of set up for him, there's nobody really behind him like that. They're gonna pass the ball a lot more. He's a good safety valve, so he's gonna get his yards in all aspects. So he's gonna run it. He's gonna catch it. He's gonna be a big time aspect of this offense. So I think it's gonna be him.
Well, so that takes us into our next category, which was offensive MVP. We had a wider range of outcomes here as far as answers are concerned. You did answer Tony Pollard. So I don't know how you went about this, LP, if you were like Dak would be too chalk, or that's, you know, not necessarily fair because he's the quarterback, but you think Tony Pollard winds up at the very least the most valuable skill position player on the offense this season?
I think so, man. And I think it's kind of a reverb of DeMarco back in 2014. It's a contract year. The guy's obviously motivated. He has something to prove. They're going to tailor the offense to his skill set. So a lot more quick passes to the backs. He's the only guy you really trust to run the football. And I think he could be in line for a monster Alvin Kamara type season with as far as yards from scrimmage. So I think you think about, like, we loved Rico. We like Deuce, but Tony commands the ball. You call it, he will haul it. And I think with the contract over his head, he's going to be leaned on heavily, and he's going to be the guy for this team when they need a first down here or a quick pass. He's going to be your man. So I'm going with Tony Pollard, man.
I'm not going to give you these points, Tony, but Chris did give you 5 for looking handsome tonight. Chris is trying to throw a wrench into the calculations tonight, so appreciate you hanging out, Chris. LP, you did pick up 5 points from Watsamata. Matsumoto compares Tony Pollard to Deebo Samuel. Obviously, we would love for the Cowboys to utilize him just all over the place, exhaust Tony Pollard. He's somebody who can help in a wide number of ways. Danny Phantom, you did not have Tony Pollard as your offensive MVP. You did not have CeeDee Lamb either, who you noted would be the non-Micah, non-Dak MVP. You actually had Dak Prescott as your offensive MVP, which makes sense.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the other 2 players you listed would be right there with them, but I think for me, the reason I chose Dak first off with Pollard, I think that we're excited about him. You know, Zeke's not there to take some of that workload, but I don't know exactly how this is going to play out. I don't think the Cowboys want to exhaust him. I know they want to preserve that juice. So I don't know that we're going to see like too much different from the Tony Pollard we're used to seeing. And then from CeeDee Lamb perspective too, is Brandon Cooks, I think, is going to be a bigger impact to this offense than we may be thinking. And I think that's going to pull some targets away to where I think it could, you know, maybe not help CD get to his 1,500 mark, which is where he's like headed right now. So anyway, but on the other side of that, Dak Prescott is there to basically just pick up all the points from every. He's got the receiving core that's way better than it was last year. He's got good. I think the tight ends they have are equally as good as what they had last year. And then all these other players that just kind of the way, like Kavontae Turpin and, you know, even Hunter Lipke, you know, we're going to see him catch some passes and stuff. And there's just a lot of different things this team could do. Deuce as well. You throw a little pass off, he gets in space. I think all that means is just some big numbers for Prescott. I think that's why he earns that honor.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I know that you guys didn't pick Dak to be your team MVP, but obviously Micah Parsons exists. Tony, you did have Dak as well as your offensive MVP, so you see him as being, again, the driving force behind what the Cowboys are going to do offensively. They've clearly put a lot on his plate, what with Mike McCarthy moving more into a West Coast offense, the Texas Coast offense, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's the Dak show at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And you like what they did in the offseason, bringing in the Brandon Cooks, like you said, and, having some of these weapons here that can help him out. I think Jake Ferguson, you know how I felt about him a few episodes ago. I think that Jake Ferguson's in line for a good big season here, especially being the number one guy. For me, it's Dak Prescott has an opportunity to really go out there and quiet a lot of doubters. It's for what that's worth. It may not mean much, but I think in this Mike McCarthy offense, with the opportunities they're going to give him, the simplification of it, and how he's able to kind of pick a spot, get on the same page with these wide receivers, have a real understanding where things don't have to be, messy, right? Everything can be clean. It can be precise. And I think that will go a long way. At the end of the day, like Dak Prescott's had seasons where he's had some great weapons. He's had seasons where the weapons haven't been great. But at the end of the day, to have an offense that is catered around him, right? Mike McCarthy said it starts with the quarterback. It starts with Dak Prescott. Then he goes out there and calls a beautiful game for Will Grier. I know we're not going to take too much away from that, but I felt really encouraged by the fact that Dak Prescott just felt like he understood this offense, what came together, what the sequencing of that play calling was. And then you put that together with a Brandon Cooks, a CeeDee Lamb. There seems to be a lot of principles in place here for Dak Prescott to have an excellent 2023.
On the subject of Brandon Cooks, I don't know if any of you listen to the Cowboys Hour, which is a great listen that's totally worth your while every week, because Brad Sham, Christy Scales, they have all sorts of guests. They had Jalen Tolbert on. I know this is a bit of a tangent. He talked about the impact that Brandon Cooks has had on him. This was on Monday. It was when it was live, but he noted that Cooks took him to Oregon over the offseason to work out and get right. They went to the Nike campus. Shout out to your neck of the woods, Danny Phantom, that Dak and CeeDee joined them. I do think the Brandon Cooks impact goes beyond just what he can provide on the field, which is an insane amount. But I mean, he is really the kind of big brother that a lot of these players needed, and somebody who's obviously done things at a high level in the NFL so far. I like this question from Doxson7, so we're going to use this to kind of go around the bend. Who's going to be the chain mover for Dak? So let's just kind of call it 3rd and 7. You need a first down. Who's the dude that we can kind of expect to be that proverbial chain mover for the Cowboys? Doxson7 says Jake Ferguson. Who do you say, LP? I think you're muted, LP. Oh, there we go.
Now I'm actually thinking about it. I kind of like ASAP Ferg in that spot too, man. I mean, because he's shown that he's a reliable guy over the middle, big catch radius, great hands. And Dak just knows how to get rid of the ball fast over the middle on third downs that are clutch. So I do like ASAP Ferg, Jake Ferguson there.
Okay, so Jake Ferguson, you're going to copy Doxson7. Tony, you're going to throw your hat in the ring, make it 3?
I mean, I'd be interested in thinking, I think it's CeeDee Lamb, but at the same time, Jake Ferguson, you know how Dak Prescott is with the tight ends. It's a hell of an answer.
Okay, so you are. So we got 3 votes for Jake Ferguson, amazingly. Danny Phantom, are you going to be unique?
I am going to be unique. I am going to take Jake Schoonmaker, because I think both those guys are going to be moving the chains. I think people are going to be really surprised by the time game 4 or 5 gets here that Schoonmaker is the Dalton Schultz clone that we were hoping for, because I think that guy is just really talented. We didn't get to see a lot of it in camp. He's dealing with an injury too, but you put those two together, you're not even going to be able to tell the difference. You're going to have to look, is it 87 or 86? So I just think both of those guys are just going to be help moving the chains. So I'm saying both those guys. I'm not picking.
I'm going to go with Brandon Cooks. I mean, I think we've allowed ourselves to dream about so many roles for different players that Brandon Cooks is kind of the thing hiding in plain sight at this point. Like, his impact is going to be really, really, really incredible. And I can't wait to see it starting Sunday night, obviously. I had CeeDee Lamb as the offensive MVP. None of you asked, which was very rude of you. I do think that CeeDee took a step to become the alpha on the Cowboys last year. I do think this is the year that CeeDee joins. I'm not saying CeeDee is Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, but joins the pantheon of NFL great wide receivers in today's moment. What's the best version of an individual Cowboys wide receiver season we've seen in recent memory? I mean, Amari 2018, Dez 2012. I mean,
2014. Dez,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, I think this is on par with that. Maybe not from a volume standpoint or a production, because there are other options, unlike what Dez had going on or Amari had going on. But I think in terms of alpha ability, that's what we see from CeeDee Lamb. I think he's become that dude. Chris Halling does also echo 2014 Dez. As we all know, he obviously caught it. Okay. Anybody have any thoughts on CeeDee Lamb?
I just agree. I think this will be. I think what we see from Lamb is probably better than what we've seen from a Cowboys receiver in the last 20 years.
So even
That's what
better.
I think. Better than
Dez.
Dez 14, better than TO whenever 2007. I think it's going to be. I think he is on a new level. I mean, the guy is just phenomenal, and I think he just continues to get better. So maybe not statistically, but just overall ability.
He has all those skills, man. Sorry, Tony. I was gonna say he has all those skills. I mean, the route running, the separation, the contested catches, the hands. He just fits. I mean, he plays everywhere across the formation, and he's tough too. He really brings all those characteristics that we've not seen in a while. So, yeah, I mean, it's sky is the limit for CeeDee Lamb, for real.
What I was trying to say just real quick is, like kind of echo what LP said, he's so multiple in what he can do. There is very little that he isn't able to kind of go out there and do from different positions, different spots in the field. And to do it with such confidence. And we saw what two training camps ago, we were like, all right, this is going to be CD's breakout. It didn't really kind of pan out last year, but everything we thought 2021 was going to be, he was that in 2022. And I think we all agree in the fact that he just kind of scratching the surface now. So he's playing with a wide receiver that believes and has so much confidence. And we know at a position like that can go a real long way. And I think the connection with him and Dak, understanding he's the guy and he's kind of not the elder statesman, but he knows he's the big dog in that room. I think it really can parlay to, it may not be statistic wise, but like he's going to demand the type of things that the guys you were talking about earlier, RJ.
In case anybody doubted that Chris Holling was in the chat, he came in with this: 2014 Dez is the best wide receiver in NFL history. Chris, I love you and I love Dez, but I don't know about that. But I mean, certainly very close. And again, one of the best Dallas Cowboys wide receiver seasons we've ever seen. Okay, so defensive MVP. And kind of along these lines, because we all picked Micah Parsons, this is the question I wanted to ask. And we'll start with LP. Who should we start with?
Dan.
Okay, so we'll start with Danny. Danny, the confidence you have in Micah Parsons is the highest amount of confidence you have had in a Cowboys player since who, when? Does that question make sense? So kind of like we just talked about, like a Cowboys wide receiver. It could be any Cowboy, any year, but like the confidence level you have in Micah Parsons ahead of 2023.
That's a hard question, man.
I don't throw softballs. I'm not the Texas Rangers.
It's got to be sometime in the late 2000s, close to. It's got to be in DeMarcus Ware's prime. That's probably it for me. I can't remember thinking of another player, because I mean, with both Dak and Romo, I mean, they have been great, but I wouldn't say my confidence level has always been through the roof with those guys. But besides going back to like Emmitt Smith, if I'm trying to find someone more in between, I think DeMarcus Ware. I mean, there was a time where he's just, he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, so I think you have to go back there. I can't say which year, but it's definitely going to be DeMarcus Ware prime.
Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of echo that. I would say specifically 20 sack 2008 DeMarcus Ware. I mean, like a freak ability. Somebody like Micah Parsons is going to shatter like everything we think about expectations and defensive, prowess. The guy is, like I said it a couple weeks ago, and I know there's a couple chuckles about it, but like it's rare to see a guy who has the generational talent and ability, but also has the drive to match it, and it's not like fake or it's not fluff. He's not saying stuff because he thinks it's good for the brand. It may be good for the brand, but he's saying this stuff because he has like the hunger. So if you match a guy, and I'll go back to even training camp after the scrum where he's like literally fist fighting people on the field, he became literally unstoppable in practice. It became like a joke. And I've met very few people in my life that have an ability to become like Super Saiyan when they're angry. Seeing that for me was one of the most confidence boosting things I've ever seen, because if Micah goes out there, has a slow half, has a slow series, like, is there any doubt in our mind that Micah Parsons can literally just say, like, I'm taking over right now? And DeMarcus Ware had that ability, obviously a Hall of Famer, 20 sacks, 2008. Like, I think that we're going to see something that we haven't seen before with Micah in 2023.
I'm worried, LP, that we are putting a little bit too much on Micah, right? Like, we're expecting him to just like, and maybe if there's ever a player that it felt fair to do that with, it's him. But like, we act like Micah's never had a bad game, and he never really has. But he has had non-Super Saiyan games, right? Like, which is what we're saying is the standard for him.
I mean, base form only. Nah, man. I mean, he's almost hitting like Ultra Instinct at this point, because there's so many things that he does. I mean, I run out of words in describing him and talking about him. The comparisons the similes, you run out of them because he's just so elite and dominant. And you talk about like the most confidence I've had in a Cowboys player. This goes back to like the Mount Rushmore guys, the Deons of the world, the Michael Irvins of the world, the guys that were going to get in your face and they're going to let you know what they're going to do to you and do it. He's that kind of guy. He's explosive. He's fast. He's a baller, man. That's the same we have out here in Maryland. He's a baller. That's what he is at all phases, at all levels. I mean, we've never seen a guy with that kind of elite speed, hunger, just ferocity, man. And DeMarcus is great, but can I say he's more explosive than DeMarcus? Is he more sudden? I think so.
I think also compared to DeMarcus Ware, and some of this is the day and age that Ware played in, and he was just a more naturally quiet person. Micah is kind of like a rising tide that lifts all the other boats. I certainly don't want to take anything away from DeMarcus Ware, friend of Blogging the Boys, Pro Football Hall of Famer, soon to be Ring of Honor member. But I mean, Micah lifts the Sam Williamses of the world. Again, not to take anything away from Sam Williams, more than DeMarcus was able to lift even the Anthony Spencers of the world. Does anybody disagree with that?
No. I think he's an alpha. We just talked about all the guys on this team that are leaders just now. And there's a lot of guys we talked about, Brandon Cooks, Dak, of course. But I think when you talk about a guy, and it's kind of rare too, because he's the kind of the guy they kind of rallied around a little bit early on. And we have a lot of vocal leaders. We have Dak, we have DeMarcus Lawrence. But when you need a play, you need to stop, and you just need a guy to get in there. He's that guy. He's that dude. And he's only 24 years old. And that's what's crazy.
Tony,
if I may, I just want to add a simple thing that's kind of a mindset thing that I keep going back to with him is Thanksgiving on the Giants. The guy tweeted out that he stayed against Andrew Thomas, who is widely viewed as one of the best left tackles in football, simply for the challenge, when he could have went over to Evan Neal, who was getting beat like a drum, consistently week after week, and he could have just made it easy for himself, but he wanted to prove a point to anybody. Like, that's sicko behavior. I know there's people that would eat. I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence was licking his chops to be on that side of the ball. Like, it's just a different breed of people that say, yeah, I could go over there and have 4 sacks. I'd rather do it against Andrew Thomas. Like, that's just so different to think of.
Okay, so Micah was incredibly obvious as the defensive MVP. Is there someone we don't see? Is there someone not getting enough attention? A non-Micah person, but Micah obviously exists in his own universe here. I mean, Trayvon Diggs would be the answer, right, for most likely defensive MVP. Maybe DeMarcus Lawrence. Is there anybody? Maybe Leighton Vander Esch in a certain way. Is there anybody else who merits discussion in that sense, Danny Phantom?
No, it's going to be Tank for me, but I think there's a lot of guys there's a long list, and the safeties, pick one of those guys. But for me, it's going to be DeMarcus Lawrence. Also, I mean, I'm really excited about what we're going to see from Osa Odigizua. I mean, everybody collectively, just that whole bunch, I think I'm just really excited about. But I did want to make one point about why I had Micah as the overall MVP too, is I think that Parsons, so typically when if a team does really well, the top player on that unit is in MVP discussions. So they're like pushed to the top because of the unit's good. And I think this Cowboys team, it's going to be the defense. This defense is going to be elite. And so I think Micah is going to be the leader of the defense. And also too, I think Prescott's actually going to help Micah have a chance for that MVP, because as the offense improves and they're scoring more, it's going to put opposing teams in much tougher spots. And this is where Micah is really going to feast, because now you can just pin your ears back and go after him. And so to me, I feel all these elements together are why we're going to see a much just more celebrating Micah Parsons, because it's just going to be phenomenal.
Okay. Next category is the one I'm the most excited about. It's also the one that you had the most questions about as a group. So I'm hopeful that leads to a really good discussion. The dude we didn't see coming. That's all I wrote. And we had 4 different answers for this, which is exciting. You can define this how you want. The way it made sense in my mind was somebody who, like, right now, if you ask me who the dudes are on the Cowboys, it's a lot of the names that we have already talked about tonight. Micah Parsons, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Trayvon Diggs, Tank Lawrence, right? So somebody who enters that pantheon that obviously is not there, but that we didn't anticipate becoming a member of that group. Again, that's just how I defined it. So if you defined it differently, that's totally up to you. So that being said, LP, let's start with you. Who was the dude we didn't see coming in 2023 for the Dallas Cowboys?
So I kind of went back and forth a little bit. I mean, I wanted to kind of go with Dan's initial point talking about like Kevontae Turpin as a receiver, but I thought about, a guy that people are kind of low on. And then I thought about myself, who am I the most low on? I've been driving the bus on this guy in the wrong direction, but I said Brandon Aubrey. Just taking it for me. And I probably, it's weird for me to say it, but I think he's starting to kind of improve a little bit. I mean, I didn't like that he didn't get a real crash course, but he's making progress. He's kicking off the ball consistently, which is what John Fossil loves. He's improved the accuracy on the extra points. And the kick against the Raiders from 49 yards, I think that was kind of like, okay, we got a little something here. So I think, they're not even interested in anybody else. They're kind of letting him kind of do his thing. And I think he's going to be fine. And they had options too. They had, the Mahers, they had the Crosbys, they had the goals. And they said, we're good. And maybe they know something that I don't. So I think he's going to be a solid kicker, not elite, but a solid kicker. And we can live with that.
Tony, what would it take for Brandon Aubrey to become a dude for you?
I would say just being able to hammer anything 40 and plus. Like, I know it sounds so mundane, but if he can be in the 90 plus percentile or 90% percentage of 40 plus, make every PAT and hit anything 40, around that range. It doesn't really have to be too much, because you're going to talk about a kicker when he's not making them. I'd rather just not speak on him and just know that we have some type of relaxation when he trots onto the field.
I think that's fair. That's a good way to put it. By the way, LP, you picked up 3 points there. Nice field goal for talking about Brandon Aubrey. Just an update on the standings. Tony and LP tied at 32 points. Danny, 27. Danny, what would it take for you for Brandon Aubrey to become a dude?
Honestly, I mean, obviously Duran Bland was the dude last year, but in second place has to be Brett Maher. So right. I mean, LP makes a great point. If Aubrey goes out there and delivers, is a consistent player and comes through and kind of helps our worries kind of go away by midseason, then he's become that dude. And he is definitely a player that we didn't see coming, because we're all worried about it. So if that happens again, the Cowboys are fortunate enough to have a solid kicker again. Absolutely. I think that would be a great answer.
Okay, LP, round of applause from everyone for you. I think that Brandon Aubrey makes some sense. I think also working in his favor is the narrative of like, the position's been so poor. I think people are over dramatizing Brett Maher's season last year, because to Danny's point, he was very solid all season long. It was just obviously it ended poorly. But people will act like he's some savior if he's just like average, right? Which is kind of what the Cowboys are expecting or hoping he'll be at this point. So well done, LP. Bravo. Okay. Tony Catalina, who is the dude that we did not see coming for the Dallas Cowboys in your opinion?
So for me, I went with a little different way than what you described it as. I don't think this guy's going to be a top 10 guy. I don't think he's somebody that's going to be like a star on this team, but we didn't see him coming because he didn't practice pretty much all training camp. He wasn't really supposed to be factored into the week 1 plans, but I think that, close your ears, Danny. I think it's going to be Jordan Lewis a little bit. And I think Jordan Lewis is going to come in and be that solidifying piece in the secondary, right? It's obviously Duran Bland's job, but I think having that little, bulldog type of angry mentality, veteran leadership in the interior of the, secondary, have a guy who can play nickel. He can be tough. He makes plays. Even when he gets injured, he's making plays. So I think he's a guy who, in the sense of how I thought about it, was he wasn't on anybody's mind. I think many people probably had him cut so Deuce can get number 2. And that's how little people thought about him at times. But I think there's going to come a time where attrition, injuries, whatever the case may be, where we're going to look and lean on Jordan Lewis a little bit. And I think he has the demeanor, the swagger, the ability to step in and play well for us. And so, for me, he's not going to be one of those top 10 guys, but I think he can really help this defense.
LP, is there not a difference between a dude and a guy? You know what I mean? Like, I could see Jordan Lewis becoming a guy, but there's a difference between that and a dude.
A dude makes plays.
That's true.
And that was Duran Bland last year. Well, that dude ain't made plays in a while, though. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with it. But I think what Tony's saying is that based on a perception of him, because he's at this point overlooked a lot, and people are kind of in a rush to get to the next thing, the new hot thing, whether that's right. Duran Bland, Mukuamu in the slot. They're kind of looking past Jordan Lewis. And to Tony's point, he's here for a reason. And I think the coaching staff really, really likes him a lot and that's why he's still around. He was a cut candidate who's still here. So I would say he could be a dude. He's a guy that could be a dude.
Tony, I think that something you said that is really apt is there are a lot of people who wanted, like silly people who wanted to cut him purely to get number 2 to Deuce Vaughn. Like that was like, Danny, you're shaking your head, but there are some people who to LP's point are just like obsessed with the new, like obsessed with Deuce Vaughn. Who cares? Blah, blah. I posted the unofficial depth chart on my Instagram today. I had a comment from somebody that was like, again, just looking at the depth chart, and there, if anyone hasn't seen it, it's available at our site at bloggingtheboys.com, but there's no backup center listed. So one of the comments was like, we need to cut Kevontae Turpin and go get a backup center. Like, again, like, so people say things like this. That's what I'm saying, Danny Phantom. I totally believe that there are people who wanted to get rid of Jordan Lewis just so that Deuce Vaughn could have number 2. That being said, could you see Jordan Lewis being a dude we didn't see coming, Danny?
Well, first off, I will say, as someone, I know a guy who thought Jordan Lewis was going to be cut, but I can tell you it wasn't because of to get his number or whatever. But I think this is a good answer. I almost said great answer, but I think it's just a good answer, and I think that I'm one of those guys that wouldn't have seen it coming because I just don't have that level of confidence in Jordan Lewis. But I like Tony's answer in the sense of there's a path where he actually becomes a larger role, and it doesn't matter if it's the slot corner or the outside corner gets hurt, because whichever it is, Jordan Lewis is coming in and playing the slot, and he's going to have a bigger role. My issue is, from everything I've seen from Jordan Lewis, which is a good player, there's still too many things wrong with his game. He's never going to play up to level of dude-like, in my opinion. So I struggle with. I know people love Jordan Lewis, and he'll get those picks, at timely manners. But overall, his game is just average at best. And so To me, I think Jordan Lewis is what he is, and that's where he'll be. And right now, he's a bench player, and it's going to take an injury for him to even get back into a starting role.
I will say it's not popular, but Deron Bland got his lumps last year. He had some situations where he wasn't perfect, right? And of course, that's that position. That's the nature of the beast there. But whether it's injury, whether it's play, I'm saying it now, and I hope I'm wrong, right? Because that means something bad happened. We're gonna end up looking for a situation where like we're gonna turn to Jordan Lewis and be like, go ahead and help us out here, please.
Yeah, you could be right, Tony. I mean, Bland, he had a great rookie season, but there's no promises in year 2. So you're absolutely right. It could go down like that. And yeah, none of us want to see that happen.
If I had to invent a category, it would be guy most likely to have a dude game, and it would be Jordan Lewis, right? Like there's a game where Deron Bland has like a hamstring issue or whatever, he can't play. And Jordan Lewis, and everyone's like, oh no, what's going to happen? And Jordan Lewis just locks down the slot, right? Like that's just, he just completely takes it away. And it's like, that's him. That's our dude, whatever. Kind of like the bump that Izzy Mukuamu got. I recognize Jordan Lewis is much longer in the tooth than these guys, but Izzy Mukuamu had that bump and everybody's like, oh my gosh, holy crap. I think it could be that moment. And then Jordan Lewis gets the like attaboys and everything like that. So that's a good answer, Tony. Definitely a different twist on the subject, but that's why this question was a lot of fun. Danny, I'll set you up to go last. I explained my methodology and the way I kind of approached it. My answer is Tyler Biadasz. Right now, Terrence Steele is getting his moment in the sun, rightfully so, completely and totally well earned. He's obviously joined the ranks of Zach Martin and Tyron Smith. Tyler Smith has the first round kind of glow that kind of puts him there as well. Tyler Biadasz is now the sort of dude who doesn't have a second contract, isn't a first round draft pick, whatever. He's on the final year of his rookie contract, but I think Tyler Biadasz has this like dominant year at center, not quite Jason Kelce level of character, but becomes this like vocal part of what we see from the Cowboys. We all saw him just completely and totally wreck Sam Williams on the final day in Oxnard. That's who Tyler Biadasz is. Like, I think he's that guy, and I think he evolves, and he plays on a team that is conducive to offensive linemen becoming stars and becoming notable and things like that. I think Tyler Biadasz becomes a much larger household name, which will also piss me off because then other people will be doing Tyler Badass, I'm the person who thought of this thing. I hate that so much. LP, am I way out of left field on this?
Nah, man. I mean, I kind of see it too because the Cowboys have had like a line over the couple years. Like Travis had the notoriety being a first round pick, therefore everybody knew who he was. It's more akin to like Andre Gerard, where he kind of comes in and he becomes your center, and then he becomes that guy that we know.
Right.
He's always going to the Pro Bowl, is there
right.
every single season. He's the Cowboys center, so there's a path, and I think he's been long fighting for respect for a while from a lot of people. And again, he's replacing who I won't say he was a legendary center, but he was a great center for a while. So he had big shoes to fill, and he's stepping along with it. I mean, step for step. So I give him that. I think he's a possible dude, if you will. So
the Andre Gerard example is really strong, and Andre didn't really become a dude until Albert Hainsworth stepped on his face, and that's when he kind of became like this household name and everything. And then all the Pro Bowls and everything followed. Tony, do you agree with Tyler Biadasz?
I do. And I think, this is funny. Shout out to Aisha Morrison from Girls Talk, Boys Talk. She put a tweet out the other day that she was talking about how she doesn't envy facing the interior of the Giants with with Dexter Lawrence and some of these bigger guys, Leonard Williams. And, when she was speaking to Tyler Biadasz about it, he like kind of laughed it off. He's like, but I do. Like he wants it. Like that's a Tyler badass. Like, what I mean? That's beyond Tyler. I'm not going to use it, but if you're going to wear that name, that's something you have to say. So yeah, I think that's a good answer. I know he was like a 6th alternate for the Pro Bowl. And, he got in. I think he is an invaluable piece. I know much like we feel about some guys that we talked about recently, there were people quietly, probably not so quietly, saying they need to move on or find a replacement for him a year or two ago. And I think the narrative about Tyler Biadasz has really changed, and I think with good reason. And it's really just been done from his work on the field.
Danny Phantom, before you give us your soon-to-be dude, do you agree with Tyler Biadasz, or are you going to throw some cold water that's in your cup all over this?
No, so I want to be honest, RJ. When I first saw your answer, I did want to throw the challenge flag on it because I thought that, are you kidding me? He's a Pro Bowler. It's like, how do you not see that coming? But I went under the hood and I looked closer and I realized, and Tony made the point already that, I mean, he is a Pro Bowler too, but he's kind of like a Jalen Smith Pro Bowler. He made it, but let's all be honest. I mean, we all love Tyler Biadasz, but I mean, he didn't have a Pro Bowl season last year. I mean, whatever. Okay, he did. But what we're seeing from camp and how he's playing now, he could be, and also too, RJ, I didn't realize how you were enunciating dude when you typed it out. So I wasn't quite sure how this needed to be defined. But I do think that he could take that next step and be a dude because I think he could earn a legit Pro Bowl this season.
Okay, well said. This has been a lot of fun. So we're 3 for 3 in terms of answers that make me happy. Granted, I was in complete and total control of one of them. Danny Phantom, it's now time for you, even though you've just picked up 5 points here, to give us your dude that we didn't see coming. Also, I guess to maybe explain how you approach the exercise, because it's clearly different than from how I did.
Yeah, first off, I want to say that my wife oftentimes likes to refer to me as Dr. Doom and Gloom because I sometimes take too much of a negative approach to things when I start forecasting what could go wrong. And so just a little disclaimer before I give my answer here. So, I mentioned Tony.
Oh my gosh. Knowing your answer now, I'm really upset at where your answer goes.
I know this isn't going to get any points, but it is what it is. But I mean, like Tony made a good, the reason I liked his answer is there's a good path for that to happen and stuff. And there's also a good path for Cowboys late round pick, Asim Richards, to become a guy that's become the next like DaRon Bland, because I think the Cowboys offensive line, there are some concerns with it already. That it's already happening, and I was very impressed with what I saw from him. I honestly didn't see much in camp and until preseason. Then he really started to put it together, and there's a lot of tape whether it's left tackle or left guard, the guy's pretty solid. And I think he was picked almost in the same spot. I think maybe 2 picks differentiate him between DaRon Bland. So to me, he just was the obvious guy because the talent's there, the path to get to put into a larger role is there. And you know what? He's that same round pick. So Asim Richards is my pick for this year's dude we didn't see coming.
You picked up 5 points there, Danny, and so did your wife. So congratulations.
I'm not telling her that.
You picked up 5 from Chris as well, and 1 from Casey. So you picked up a lot of points there. What is that? 11 total points for you. Tony, Asim Richards. I mean, kind of like we've spent a lot of time getting pumped up about different members of this rookie class. He's kind of never really had a turn.
No, and Danny's right. Like a lot has to unfold for him to get into the dude category. I'd feel like it's not like more unrealistic than the Jordan Lewis situation because they're both like one injury away from being in that spot. But Jordan Lewis, at least, to this point, has made plays and shown it. Like Asim Richards would have to get in show that he's able to do it, and then hit dude status. So I think he had a good, solid preseason. I think some people are really encouraged by it. But if Danny's right, a lot has to go right to get to that point.
LP, Austin Richards comes in for, let's call it week 8. You trust him or no?
Nah, man. I mean, you can. But the path and the rationale. So then, hats off to you. The rationale is very sound. It's very solid. And who knows what this line, the O-line health. You never really know. So yeah, but he has to get on the field, kind of be sure of himself, like we saw in the preseason, and play well, and then be a guy. But I like the setup. I just don't see it happening off the bat, though.
That's actually, I think between Tony and LP, they uncovered how I feel about your point, Danny. He's not even a guy yet. You know what I mean? At least Jordan Lewis is a guy at this moment. Like, well, you know, like we've got to evolve to that state. He's Bulbasaur. We got to become Ivysaur before we can become Venusaur.
Well, for full disclosure, I read that as a guy we didn't see coming. I didn't really understand the definition. So to me, I just think that because Tyler Smith was one of that guy to me last year, I would have told you how worried I was with Tyler Smith, and then look what happened. And I didn't see that coming. So I think when I'm answering this question, I would think if he does get thrown into action, and then he actually comes in and plays surprisingly okay, where it just doesn't completely take the wheels off the offense. To me, I would say I wouldn't have expected that, and he would be a player that I would have just would surprise us all with being able to step in and make plays. Dude status, whatever, no. But outside of that, surprise player that elevates into some starting role, yeah, that's definitely doable.
Danny, that was a very positive round for you at present time. You have a commanding 59 point score that is a 17-point lead on LP, who's got 42. Tony right there at 41. Still anyone's game. We've actually seen Danny Phantom specifically blow a big lead before, so you never know what's going to happen. Hardest game for the Dallas Cowboys. And you can have thought this was going to be the hardest game for any number of reasons. The team, the time of year, the weather. This place just gives you the spooks, whatever it may be. I'll go first and say that I picked the Chargers. And it is going to annoy me greatly when the Cowboys win a barn burner against the Chargers and Dak outplays Justin Herbert and nobody gives him any credit. Everybody only wants to talk about how Kellen Moore was so wonderful and amazing, and they don't want to talk about Mike McCarthy. Like, I'm pissed off at the takes they're going to come from the Cowboys beating the Chargers 47-41.
Stop being Mr. Doom and Gloom, RJ. Come on.
Okay, so that was my answer, the Chargers. Tony Catalina, hardest game for the Cowboys this year in your estimation?
Yeah, I got November 5th at Philadelphia with the Eagles.
Remember. Have you seen that movie?
I have not. I got to watch that one. But no, I mean, this game, it's going to be the hardest game for a multitude of reasons, right? On the field, the Eagles are a very good football team. They're a football team that obviously commands the respect. They've done a lot of good things when it comes to drafting, free agency. Just if they weren't one of your biggest rivals, you'd already look at it and say, okay, this can be a tough matchup. Now, the Cowboys always play them tough. There's always a good game, good rivalry there, good matchup. But once you go into Philadelphia, it's going to be a little chilly in November. As you get later into the season, the schedule, it means more as you get tighter into that. Who knows where we're at? Are we a game up? Are we a game down? Are we at the same record? Like, what is it going to look like? Implications, plus the team we're playing, plus the stakes. It's just a lot is going to come into that. Obviously, we got the Jets in week 2 and you got the Chargers. There's a lot of good games you can pick from this tough Cowboy schedule. But if you look at this game here could mean a lot. And that's before Thanksgiving. But that's where my mind went. As soon as you saw this question, I didn't really have to think about it too hard.
Tony, did you know that November 5th is the day that Marty went back in time to in 1955?
I didn't, but I love that movie. I do.
It's the day that the Doc invented time travel, but whatever. LP, Tony mentioned the Jets game. You actually have next Sunday as the hardest game of the year for the Cowboys, the New York Jets in the home opener.
Yeah, I do. Because when you asked the question, I looked at it at face value. What is the hardest? Not what's the most significant, most important, highest stakes. I have a point on that a little bit later on, but I thought what is the hardest game to play this team? And I thought about maybe out in Western New York late in the year, but I said it's the Jets, and they're just a perfect mix of veteran players with good young talent, and they kind of mirror the Cowboys. I mean, you got Micah, who's kind of like Sauce Gardner, an all-pro rookie, an elite top-tier player already, so young, so dominant. Robert Saleh is a defensive genius, the likes of Dan Quinn, and they've already improved as well, and they have speed to boot. And I think we had to talk about Aaron Rodgers, who's now 8-3 against the Cowboys, undefeated in the playoffs. And that division is so stacked, but I think they're the cream of that division. Where all those teams could be at the playing for the AFC title game. I just think the Jets are a tough matchup, talent, experience, and they're hungry. And I think that's kind of a team that looks just like us. So I think that's when you say hard, I think about the Jets.
It would be all-time annoying to lose again to Aaron Rodgers in a different uniform at AT&T Stadium. It felt like Mike McCarthy had that one last year, and then the Cowboys let it slip through their fingers. And so if it were to happen again, it would only feed the narrative. Especially, I talked about this with Brandon Gatton on the NFC East mixtape, which comes out on Wednesday. If the Cowboys lose on Sunday to the Giants, right? I mean, it's possible, right? Like, I think we all think it's unlikely, but it's possible. Then we have to face the prospect of falling to 0-2 next week at the hands of Aaron Rodgers. And if you want to create like doomsday scenario, Danny Phantom, let's say the Eagles beat the Patriots this week. They're 1-0. They play on Thursday Night Football next week. So say the Eagles beat the Vikings on Thursday Night Football. So say the Eagles are 2-0. We're already 0-1 in the division, and we got Aaron Rodgers coming to town, somebody who we don't fare well against. That would be a really long and nerve-wracking weekend next weekend.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't have any worry about anything in week 2. Just to be honest,
Look at that. Okay.
I mean, I know the Aaron Rodgers thing is a thing, but so was the Tom Brady thing. So I'm not worried about that. But I will say, as far as my answer goes, it was a tie for me, and I will give you props, RJ, because your answer was my second choice. Because I, unlike a lot of Cowboy fans, actually do think Kellen Moore is a good coordinator. So that's why that is, a game that worries me. And also they would be coming off a game against the 49ers, which, they could be a little bit beat up because the
Cowboys, what you're saying.
The Cowboys
right.
would be. Yeah. So I think that's a tough 2-game stretch. So then going into to play the Chargers, it could be difficult, which is the same reasoning that I'm picking my actual answer, which is going to be the Bills game. And that would be in early December at Buffalo. Again, similar situation. They would come out of a game playing the Eagles where they could come in and it could be a crucial late season game too. So they could be a little worn down there and then have to go in on the road to play in maybe the snow, if we don't know, against a really good AFC team, maybe the best AFC team. So that's why I'm picking Buffalo. It could be weather, and it could just be a really tough, important stretch for the Cowboys. So that could end up being their hardest game.
I think that's a good answer too. It's interesting that 3 of our answers were all AFC games, right? Like if the Cowboys lost LP, Danny, and I's games, like at the end of the day, those are the ones you want to lose. But if they lost Tony's game to that point, like Tony's game is, the one that carries the most importance. So it kind of is what it is. Okay. We're going to combine the final 2 categories, gentlemen. So if you can look at your answers and kind of give your whole overall statement. Season ending. So I would like each of you to tell us the final record you think the Cowboys will have, whether or not you think, because spoiler alert, we all have them as playoff teams, whether you think that's as the division winner, as a wild card, whatever the case may be, how you think their season ends in terms of what round, at what point, whether that's a certain, line or all the way at the end, whatever the case may be. Let's go right now. Tony, you are in last place, so you get to go first.
I'm not, but I appreciate going first there.
You are? Oh, no. Okay. Well, actually, let me fix this real quick. So, Tony, you are in last place. So you get to go first right here. There you go, LP. Nice little bump.
Proving RJ wrong was enough for the bump. That feels good. So for me, I look at the schedule and I think this team is at least a game or 2 better, but I think the schedule is a game or 2 harder. So when I look at it, I think, we've had 2 back-to-back seasons at 12-5. I think it's entirely conceivable that they go 12-5 again. 36 wins in 3 seasons. Mike McCarthy, that feels pretty good. And as far as where I think this team can go, and I'm trying to be honest and not be a homer about it, I think there is a Super Bowl appearance in their future, but I won't go as far as to say is they're going to be Super Bowl champions because I need to see that. Right. Like it's something we haven't even seen this part, right? We haven't even seen the NFC Championship. So while I agree that this team has the capabilities and I anticipate the talent being able to get them to a Super Bowl, I'm going to stop just short of predicting a win because, again, we need to see it.
So Tony, let's say the Cowboys were in the Super Bowl. Would you not pick them? Like just off of like, I don't know, man. Like, I mean, I know you got here, but like, I can't, it's against my better judgment.
The hopium in me would be running through my veins, but I think I would stop short because I kind of believe in jinxes. So if I didn't think they were gonna win it and we get to that far, I'm probably not gonna kind of ruin that.
Okay, so Tony, you have the Cowboys going 12-5 for the third year in a row and reaching the Super Bowl. That is your prediction on Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. We'll see how that bears itself out. Okay, so LP, you're in second place. Tony, you were in second place at the moment. Tony's picked up some points since then. So you get to go next. What is the Cowboys' final? Tony, were they a division winner in your world?
I bet you. I say no. I say the Eagles go 13-4, we go 12-5, and we lose the division. Yeah.
So LP, final record, how they're in the playoffs, and where it ultimately ends. You're muted, LP. Sorry about that.
All right, man. So sorry about that. But yeah, so I got them as a 13-4 wild card team. I think the games they lose it's the games they lose they're going to decide it. You're going to split with the Eagles, unfortunately. Kellen gets his revenge, ice cold in Buffalo, and the Jets kind of fly past them. And I think just based on that, that's enough for them to kind of sit behind the Eagles. But I will say this, though. We get the game that we needed last year. We get the Cowboys and the Eagles for the NFC title game finally. And I just think about it's just time. All the Twitter trash talk, all that has to amount to something. And the crescendo is kind of building. And we need to see these two teams play each other at the highest stakes on the line. And it has to happen right now. We just got to see it. So kind of like that old school Leah song, we just need a resolution with this team, who they are, what's going to happen. And today, and I really want to be wrong about this, man. I really do. But I think those two teams meet and they get the best of us. So, but I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong, man.
All right. So to be very clear here, you have the Cowboys going 13-4 and as a wild card team. So the Eagles they've got at least 27 wins. The Cowboys and the Eagles do between the two of them, or at least 26. To your point, the tiebreaker could just lean in Philly's favor. But so 13-4 as a wild card team, that would be really devastating. But I mean, hey, sometimes it happens. And you have the Cowboys reaching the NFC title game for the first time since 1995 and losing to and that would be in Philadelphia, obviously.
Yeah.
That would be a really, really long offseason. Like, I don't know that we have that in us, to be quite frank. Like, I think David gave you 5 points, says I both love and hate that scenario. That would be tough. It would be such an incredible risk because if the Cowboys won that NFC title game, I don't know that any of us would ever shut up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it would be nirvana, but the risk to lose that game would be devastating.
Highest of high stakes, man. But I feel like it just feels destined, man. Those things have to happen. We have to see them at the best, and hopefully we come out on top. But that's just what it feels like.
I'm not going to take away 5 points from y'all, but Kevin did from both Tony and LP for depressing endings of the season. So to be fair, Tony didn't say that he thought the Cowboys would lose the Super Bowl, and at least if the Cowboys lost the Super Bowl to anybody, it would hurt a million times less than losing the NFC Championship game to the Eagles in Philadelphia, of all places. So,
yeah, like I'm not going to pick them to win it because I want to see them do it. Like I haven't seen it in over a quarter century. So making it there, I thought was like going out on a limb, but I guess not.
Danny Phantom.
Man, these last two answers have been really depressing. First off, the picture that LP painted, to go 13-4 and then to finish that way is just, I mean, that would be very disappointing. And and Tony keeps saying that I want to see them do it. No, if they're in the Super Bowl, they've earned something from me. They got a 50-50 shot. I'm going to say the Cowboys are taking it down if that happens. But anyway, that's just my critique of your answers. Now that I've said all that, let me bring back and embrace my inner Eeyore and give the worst answer of the group. And I have the Cowboys going 11-6. And this isn't similar to what Tony said. It has nothing to do with like them falling off at all. I don't see that at all. I think they're going to be a better team, but I think that football's just hard. And I'm a numbers guy. And I feel like this is just where they'll fall. And honestly, I think Philly may fall as well. I think it might surprise people that this NFC East as surprising as it was last year, could be equally surprising. And because I think Washington's going to be better this year. So where do I have them finishing? I have them finishing where they always finish. I have them going to the divisional round, and it's a numbers game, and the odds are they're not going to be one of those teams that emerge there. So that I'm sticking with the numbers because that's just how I roll. They lose in the divisional round again.
Yikes. Okay. Well, I don't know. I mean, LP's yours still was more depressing than Danny's. Like, at least.
What's yours, RJ?
So it is like prediction time, obviously. Like every NFL show or platform or media conglomerate is offering their predictions. That's just, what happens this week every year. And so I do another show on the SB Nation NFL show feed called Monday Football Monday. We actually did it today on Tuesday because of Labor Day. So happy belated Labor Day to everybody. We offered our predictions. I picked the Cowboys to win the division. Danny, were they a division winner in your hypothetical?
Yeah, so they actually were. So I think they tie, except the Eagles, and the Eagles end up having to tie, which makes them just slightly fall out.
So you actually predicted all the games here. Like, this wasn't just like
I didn't go through and predict them. I just said this is how it's going to go down. I'm going to roll. I'm a numbers guy. We're not going to have back-to-back division winners, so I'm not giving it to Philly. Sorry,
right?
It's going to be Dallas, but it's as close as it can be.
So I've got Dallas winning the division. And again, if anybody doesn't know what Danny's referencing, no team has won the NFC East 2 years in a row since 2004. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it also doesn't mean nothing. You're talking about almost 20 years of history, which is, at this point, almost a third of NFL history, or it's over a third right now. And so that's a factor. I mentioned the NFC East mixtape. I've said this to Brandon Gouton several times. I think last year was the greatest season in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history. They did not win the Super Bowl, but in terms of who they were, that might be, when the world ends, the greatest Philadelphia Eagles team to ever live and ever play together. And thank God they didn't win the Super Bowl. But again, they were that amazing. And so regression is obviously coming for them in a lot of ways, and in positive ways too. And regression is coming from the Cowboys in lots of ways. But I think the Cowboys are different. I know you don't trust Mike McCarthy as much as most of us, Danny, but last year, we've ripped through these stats a million times. They were a playoff team in back-to-back years for the first time in 15 years last year, in spite of sharing a division with a team who had the best year in their, million-year franchise history. They won double-digit games in back-to-back years for the first time since 1995 and 1996. We have all projected them to have double-digit wins again. They have earned that benefit of the doubt in my mind. So I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt in a lot of senses. I'm certainly willing to give them the benefit past the divisional round. And some of that is that I think that there's not a playoff game you can draw up that I would really be fearful of at this point. I'm no longer afraid of San Francisco just because I'm numb to it, right? So I'm just too dumb to be afraid of the Niners at this point. I'm not really afraid, as much as terrifying as that sounded, LP, of the Cowboys going to Philly. Dak Prescott owns the Eagles. We know that. We say that all the time. We can't say that and then cower in fear if that ultimately comes to pass. And so if the Cowboys have to go to Minnesota or Tampa or I don't know, Washington, that's going to, put fear in me. No. So it's very difficult to envision a scenario on the NFC side of things that I don't feel like they have some sort of favorable matchup. They have the dude who we all just gassed up for 30 minutes and Micah Parsons on their side. They have Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and all the dudes who aren't even dudes yet on their side. So I'm picking the Cowboys not only to reach the Super Bowl, but to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. That's how I see this season ultimately unfolding.
Book it.
Anybody else? Anybody have any thoughts? I do
have a thought, man. That was good.
I have a thought here because I feel like I've seen this movie before. It's almost like, we go back 1 year ago today and we've got the same kind of thing going. And of course we're all excited about it. People want to believe that this is the Cowboys season. And this is a good team. I would not be surprised at all if they win the Super Bowl. They definitely are going to be one of those teams. But as I said a year ago, it's just hard. Winning football is hard. And, you get there and, the odds are it's probably not going to happen. So that's, I think we just kind of need to maybe be happy when it does, but also kind of just temper our expectations too, because it's just a really tough thing to achieve, and we shouldn't be so critical of it. If the Cowboys don't get past the divisional round, someone's going to bring out the torches either for Prescott or McCarthy. I already know where my torches are going, but it's going to happen on one of those. You can't love them both. Someone's a scapegoat for this, and so people just need to kind of take a deep breath and just enjoy the ride, but also realize this is a challenge that lies ahead.
I agree with you, Danny. If I had to take the Cowboys or the field, I would take the field. Like, they probably won't win the Super Bowl, right? Like, it's an incredibly difficult thing. It's an impossible thing, right? Like, there are multiple professional franchises who have never done it before, right? Like, it's an impossible thing to even like think of them accomplishing. And there's all sorts of like fear and paranoia within us. And I'm with you. Like, we have seen this movie before. It isn't like, oh, we feel like we've seen this. No, we have. Like, we have sat here many an off season and said, oh, it's going to be different because this. And so we've tried all the like silly, oh, well, now they have this. They got a new Charles Haley. They got a new Deion Sanders. Like, we have tried to connect them to the past forever. And I'm finally done doing that, but I'm at least willing to believe in whatever the future has. And they have as high of a ceiling as anybody that isn't the Kansas City Chiefs, because their ceiling is different. And so if that being said, that doesn't inhibit them from getting to the Super Bowl. So yeah, Cowboys beat them. And Dak Prescott beats Joe Burrow, and it's awesome. That's my take. LP.
Nah, man, good storytelling, RJ. Real good storytelling. I'm with it.
Okay, so by the way, Chris's comment in the chat got a lot more props than y'all's. Chris said, for what it's worth, I have us going 14-3 and beating the Bills in the Super Bowl with Micah Parsons as Super Bowl MVP. So
didn't he have the same thing last year?
I don't think so. But Tony.
I think it was him and his co-host who was like, if they go 12-5, I want Mike McCarthy out of the building. So I don't know.
That's the thing. Like, look, I think that barring anything that we can't obviously predict, the idea of firing Mike McCarthy is dumb to me, because we all just sat here and agreed that this team at worst has 11 wins in them. And he's helped turn them into that. Like, he's helped turn them into a team that we can set our watch towards winning 11 games. That is a luxury.
I mean, Dak Prescott, when healthy, has never had a losing season in his career. And Danny was talking about the numbers. Like, if we're going to play the numbers, let's look at that as the floor, right? And then Mike McCarthy, back-to-back 12-win seasons, 24 wins in 2 years. Like, if we get another crack in the playoffs, we can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater because we don't win the Super Bowl, which is the hardest thing in sports to do. Like, just keep plugging away, keep chopping, and eventually it's either going to happen or it isn't. But every year you get a shot at it.
Well, I will say this, though, with the defense they have and the new weapons we have on offense, if they don't take the next step, something's not right. Because, I mean,
I disagree with that. Like, it could be that crap got weird. You know what I mean?
It could be.
Like,
No, absolutely. I don't want to just make a general statement that that's the case too, because football's weird and, randomness of it. But I will say this: if they show up and they underperform, I think there are some issues. And now, am I going to say that if McCarthy puts another 12-5 season that he deserves to go? No, but I think you need to really look at things and what's really happening. And why are they not successful with the tools they have? Because there's so many good pieces here, and I think the reason why we're so high on this team is because of that and what the Cowboys have done to build this roster. So, we need to see results. We need Dak to show up, or we need McCarthy to show up, and if they don't, then the Cowboys, they're really limited on what they can do.
All right. LP, you have a closing thought there.
So I was just thinking about that with the coach, man. I look at other teams like the Pats, the Steelers. Continuity of head coach is fine. I have no look at Mike Tomlin. He hasn't won a ring in forever, but he's not a bad coach. He's not a losing coach. He stabilizes the system, and I think them in a rebuild, he's kind of making them respectable. I think when Mike is done coming in and, like Tony said, raising that floor, I think you're doing pretty good at head coach. If you can keep retooling the roster, add more pieces, I think you're fine, man. And even like their drafts, they threw away a draft class from 2021 because we feel so good about what they have now. And I think that has to count for something with McCarthy. So I'm totally fine with it, man. Like I said, I think they're going the right direction.
I hear everything you said and continuity and all that stuff, but when you say McCarthy, what I'm really hearing is Dan Quinn. So I just think that he's the biggest piece here in the Cowboys' success, because that's just my own personal feeling, because I think Dan Quinn's really good, and I don't think quite as high as McCarthy, but that's just where I'm at.
I will say, not to get too far off the rails here, but I hear Danny and I respect what you're saying but I hear that a lot from a lot of people. And they say, well, if Mike McCarthy doesn't work out, we have the replacement in Dan Quinn. Well, Dan Quinn was a part of what we didn't get done, right? So like he's just all we're doing is moving up from the B chair to the A chair, and he was a part of the failures too. So we're gonna get rid of Dan Quinn, bring somebody else to be offensive coordinator, and just hope everything works out because we just made one low key switch. Like I'm not the person who's comfortable with complacency, right? Like I understand if you go 12-5, get bounced in the divisional round again, there are some things that gotta be, looked at and tweaked and figured out what it is. But I'm not gonna sit here and just throw things away because we didn't get the ultimate prize. Like I understand Chris is almost like a starving artist at this point, right? He wants it, he needs it. Like I feel him, but I'm also not gonna like cut my nose off to spite my face. Like I understand that we're seeing something. RJ, you alluded to it. 15 years we hadn't seen back-to-back like winning seasons and double-digit seasons, whatever the case may be. Like that counts for something. It may not win you the ultimate prize, but we're finally in a spot here where we're like, okay, the floor is 11 wins. We're gonna go to the playoffs. What can we do at that point? And that just feels good to sit here and say that.
That's all well said. A great roundtable as always, gentlemen. The points are closed. Tony, you picked up 5 more there at the very end, but I will say that you did not need them. Danny Phantom takes home the silver medal with 74 points. LP, the bronze, even though your microphone is gold with 71. Tony, you would make T.O. proud. Danny mentioned 2007 Terrell Owens, 81 points for you in a victory. Congratulations. How are you feeling? Who would you like to thank? Who would you like to make fun of? The floor is yours.
Well, what was it, Kobe that did the 3? Because I've won 3 back-to-back roundtables, so I might have to just retire for a little while and just go on a high note. No, honestly, I love it. I appreciate it. So 3-peat feels good.
It's funny you mentioned Kobe because of 81. You dropped 81 just like Kobe did. Look at that,
Exactly.
Tony.
Wow. Works out for me. I know Danny's a Laker guy.
You deserve the win now, Tony.
Yeah. That makes I don't know who that makes you, Danny, and who that makes you, LP. But Tony Catalina is Kobe here tonight. Wow. LP, any closing thoughts?
71 is Devin Booker, I think. So I'm cool with that.
Danny, you can be Dikembe Mutombo because you just
how about I be Chuck Howell? How about I be Mr. Cowboy? So
that's fair. Not Chuck Howley, but Bob Lilly, definitely.
Bob Lilly.
Yeah.
That's what I've said.
Right. Wow. Okay. Well, Chris Halling says 3 roundtables that I have not been on. Chris knows where the docket is to join these. So I don't know, Chris, that's on you, man. I mean, if you want to come for Tony's crown, you know where the sign-up sheet is. So, all right, Tony, you can go last. Let's go from bronze to silver. Sorry, LP. Score predictions for Sunday's game against the Giants. LP, please.
Man. Let me get Cowboys. They went pretty smooth. I say Dallas 27-10.
Okay. Danny Phantom.
I'm going to say it's a little bit sloppier than we think. I think Dan Quinn's Cowboys takes home the prize 24-13.
Okay. Tony, take us home.
I got him winning. I got them winning 24-20, where the offense feels like they left a little bit on the field and the defense feels a little annoyed by what the performance they had, but they still start 1-0.
And they still cover. Tony, finally, you will be there. Promise us something you will do.
Anything. Somebody tweet at me, literally give me a list of suggestions. If whatever gets the most likes or repeated answers, I will literally do whatever they ask me to do. That's legal.
Okay. Sounds like Tony's painting his body.
Whatever it takes.